Welcome, everybody, to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. I am your host, John Espinosa. I want to thank you all for taking the time to tune in and listen to the podcast today. If you like what you hear, do me a favor, click on that subscribe button. One, it makes sure that you don't ever miss an episode. And then two, it helps us get this out to as many people as we possibly can. And ultimately, it meets our mission of getting others to where they're going. I run preparing for a race, and as I run, I put on a series of podcasts. I have about 5 or 6 different podcasts that I listen to, and I put them in the queue depending on the length of my run, and that way I make sure that I got plenty of audio for me. There's nothing worse. I don't like running without music. So I try to have something at least in my ear, and it knocks 2 things out at once: physical health, and then also my mental health and my professional development. But today, as I was running and listening, when I was a young leader, I led from assumptions. I don't know if any of you out there have done this or are doing this. And let me tell a little story. So I as a young leader, I had a team. The team members, they would come on, and I was a project manager at this time. So I was dealing with subject matter experts. I was dealing with instructional design people from all over, different skill sets, different work schedules, different areas of the organization. And I assumed that they knew how to run projects. I assumed that they had run projects before, or they had been on a project team, and they understood that there was certain milestones, there was certain deliverables, there was time frames, there was hours that we had in our work breakdown structure that we had allocated for specific tasks in the overall project. And that wasn't the case. Some of these subject matter experts had never even been on outside of their normal day-to-day operation or their normal day-to-day duties. They were coming on, this was in a training environment, so they were coming on to the training team on a training project and had no idea where things fit into the whole entire project and where they fit specifically in their deliverable, how important that was to make sure that it was completed on time and handed in. So that's just one example as project manager that I assume that people had worked on projects before. In my personal life, I have a 16-year-old, and it's real easy for me to assume that he should know better. How many times have you said that to your kids? Well, you should know better. They're 16 years old. I mean, my son, he only has 16 years of experience to pull from versus me, who at the age of 44, I have 44 years of experience, mistakes, things that I've done to pull from. So I have to remind myself not to lead through assumptions. I'm going to talk about 4 things today that will help you leaders out there not lead from a place of assumption. 1, I think it's important, and leaders aren't robots. A lot of times people look to leaders as that beacon of light, that cornerstone of the organization, but leaders are people too. Leaders have bad days. Leaders have personal lives. Leaders have things that are going on. And where I'm going with that is we have to ask ourselves, what are we feeling? When we start making assumptions about somebody, a team, an organization, whatever that may be, when those assumptions start coming up in our thoughts, we have to ask ourselves, what are we thinking? Do we just have a bad day, or maybe got some bad news delivered to us and we are just not in a good mood? And so I'm going into a meeting and maybe someone on the team or someone outside of the team isn't on their game that meeting, and I automatically start assuming that they don't know what they're talking about or they didn't prepare well for the meeting. Whatever's going on, I got to check my feelings. I got to ask myself, when I start coming up with those assumptions about somebody else, what am I feeling? Is it my state of mind that's impacting those assumptions, or is it my state of mind that's creating those assumptions about that other person because of the mood or the attitude that I have? A lot of times along those lines of checking my feelings is my past experiences. So if I've been in meetings where they've not been run well, or maybe this individual, it could just be one past meeting that this individual wasn't on their game. They may have been having a bad day. And guess what? Now I got them briefing in another meeting, and I'm automatically going to start assuming that they're not going to do well. Give them another chance. We all deserve at least 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. I've been given I don't know how many dozen chances to excel at what I'm doing, and I didn't outperform on all 12. I'm lucky that somebody had the patience and didn't assume that John didn't know what he was talking about and continued to let me be at the table and continued to allow me to grow in my leadership journey. So the first thing, what are you feeling? Check those feelings and why or how those impact your assumptions that you're making. The second one is positive intent. Now this goes along the lines with checking your feelings, but this one is different in the fact that I'm going to give everybody the best possible chance that they have to excel or succeed in the environment. I'm going to assume positive intent. I'm going to assume that they're going to knock the ball out of the park. It goes back to that self-fulfilling prophecy that if I, as the leader, assume that an individual is not going to do bad, sometimes our unconscious bias, our behaviors will impart on that person that we don't have the utmost confidence, and then their confidence goes down. Again, back to a recent example, my son, he suffers from a little bit of social anxiety, so I have to be very aware and assume positive intent when we go into social situations, and I encourage him. I'm constantly letting him know what the triggers are or focus on the outcome, very similar to what I talk to everybody else about, and I try to practice that with him, but I am assuming a positive intent. Sometimes it may be a gathering that I need to be at, and he's having some anxiety about it, so I have to assume that he wants to be there. I can't just assume that, he just doesn't want to be there because he wants to play video games or he wants to hang out with his friends. That's what I mean about positive intent. We have to assume that the person is going to excel and wants to be the best that they can be. Number 3, remain curious. The question you should ask yourself whenever you start, again, getting those assumptions and leading with assumptions is, am I curious enough? So what does curiosity look like? Curiosity looks like asking questions. Curiosity looks like not being the over talker or explaining something in your own words versus asking the person, hey, I want to know more about that. Tell me more about what you just said. Tell me more about those thoughts. I want to know more. It allows you to be curious. It allows you to make sure, we're going to go to the fourth one, if we are asking good questions, we are able to validate our assumptions, which that's the fourth one, is to validate what we are assuming by asking good questions and remaining curious. So if we're always staying in that state of curiosity, then we are going to validate those assumptions. The assumption may be that an individual didn't show up for a dinner because they had better things to do, or they're late to the meeting or late to work because they just don't know how to get up on time. When guess what? They may have had a sick child at home. They may have had car issues. There's a lot of things that could explain why that individual is late. Even in a relationship. Well, my wife didn't call me. I'm on travel. She didn't call me to check up on me or see how my day went. Well, she's here at home dealing with kids. She could have had a busy day dealing with the kids, running people to practice, making sure that they have all they need for that particular day. And she just didn't call. It wasn't because she doesn't care about me, because that's what I'm assuming. I'm assuming that she didn't care about me. Instead, I need to remain curious and ask questions. Hey, Jen, how did your day go? She says, well, we were late to soccer practice, or Connor forgot his bag and so I had to run it to him last minute. It's just been one of those days. Whatever happens, that is the story, and we're assuming that she just didn't care about me because she didn't call. So leading by making assumptions is something that leaders need to check themselves whenever they're starting to do. And the way that they can do it is simply going through those 4 steps. 1, what is my state of mind? How am I feeling? Do I have feeling towards this person? Is it about the situation? Is it past experiences? What am I feeling going in? Is it my personal state of mind that I've just had a bad morning or a bad afternoon and I'm taking that emotional baggage into the meeting with me, or taking that emotional baggage into a situation and then it blows up into something that's bigger than really what it should have been in the first place. Number 2, make sure that we're assuming positive intent. And you can put these in the form of questions. So how am I feeling? Am I assuming positive intent? Do I believe that that person has the best intent and they're doing the best that they possibly can? Because if we start from a no, or we start from a negative mindset right from the get-go, those vibes come off. That energy, people like to call the negative energy, the positive energy, you can feel that from across the room. So that's what I'm talking about, that energy. Assume a positive intent. Am I assuming a positive intent? Am I curious? Am I remaining curious? Am I asking good questions? And then validate. Am I validating my assumptions? Those 4 questions are going to help you as a leader not lead from a state of assumption. Go be great. We'll talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us get others to where they're going.